Welcome back to Grim Tale Teller, where shadows hide stories that chill your bones. I'm your host, pulling eerie tales from your emails at grimtaleteller@gmail.com. Tonight, we've got a spine-tingling submission from 1998, sent by Nancy, a 50-year-old horse rancher living alone in Cave Creek, Arizona. She swears this encounter happened, and it might tie to the black-eyed children legend. Real or myth? You decide. Got a haunting story? Send it to grimtaleteller@gmail.com. Subscribe, dim the lights, and listen. This is Nancy's tale of the black-eyed strangers at her gate. I'm Nancy, 50 years old, a widow living alone on my small horse ranch in Cave Creek, Arizona. It's 1998, and out here, it's just me, my two old dogs, Shadow, a black lab, and Sunny, a golden retriever, and the desert. No neighbors for miles back then, just coyotes and javelinas prowling the night. I've got a fake tombstone by the gate that reads, "Here lies the last son of a bitch who didn't shut my gate." A joke about keeping the wildlife out. But that night, October 12th, 1998, something came knocking that wasn't laughing. Life on the ranch was simple but hard. I'd moved here after my husband passed, figuring the quiet would heal me. The ranch had 6 horses, old mares mostly, and the dogs kept me company. Shadow was 12, graying around the muzzle, and Sunny was 10, slower but loyal. We had a routine: feed the horses at dusk, lock the gate, and settle by the fire with the dogs at my feet. That tombstone? I put it up years ago after a javelina got in and spooked the herd. It's rusted metal, a grin to anyone who visits, if anyone did. October 12th started normal. The sun dipped behind the cacti, painting the desert red. I fed the horses, checked the water trough, and shut the gate tight. Shadow and Sunny trotted beside me, sniffing the air. Coyotes were yipping in the distance, usual for Cave Creek. I built a fire in the pit, the crackle mixing with the desert wind. The dogs lay down, heads on paws, watching the flames. It was peaceful until around 9 p.m. A knock came at the door. Not the gate, my door. Out here, that's odd. No car lights, no footsteps, just that sharp rap. My heart skipped. Shadow's ears perked up. Sunny whined low. I grabbed a flashlight and peeked through the curtain. 2 kids stood there, barely visible in the porch light's weak glow. A boy, maybe 12, and a girl, about 10, both in clothes that looked old. Faded jeans, patched jackets like from the 70s. No car, no bikes, just standing still as statues. The boy spoke first, voice flat. "Ma'am, our car broke down. Can we use your phone?" The girl nodded, eyes down. I hesitated. Out here, you don't let strangers in, especially kids alone at night. "Where's your folks?" I asked, cracking the door just an inch. Shadow growled deep, hackles up. Sunny pressed against my leg, trembling. They didn't answer, just stared. The boy said, "Please, we need to come in." Something felt off. Too polite, too insistent. I shone the flashlight on them. That's when I saw it. Their eyes. Not normal. Solid black, no whites, like polished obsidian. My stomach dropped. The dogs went wild, barking and snapping at the door. I stepped back, heart pounding. "No, you stay out," I said, voice shaking. "Gates open. Walk to town if you need help." The girl tilted her head, unnatural, and whispered, "We can't stay out here." "Let us in." Coyotes howled closer. Javelinas rustled in the brush. I slammed the door, locked it, and leaned against the wood, breathing hard. I peeked through the window, flashlight trembling in my hand. The kids hadn't moved, just stood there, black eyes glinting like wet stones under the moon. The boy's voice came again, muffled but clear. "We won't hurt you. We just need to come in." It wasn't a plea. It was a demand, cold and hollow. Sonny whimpered, claws scratching the floor. Shadow bared his teeth, a low rumble in his throat. I thought of the tombstone. The gate left open once before, but this felt different, predatory. "No!" I shouted. "Get off my land!" They didn't flinch. The girl stepped forward, her shadow stretching long across the dirt. "You'll regret this," she said, voice like a sigh on the wind. Then they turned, slow and deliberate, walking toward the gate. I watched, expecting them to leave, but they stopped at the tombstone. The boy traced its words with a finger, and for a second, I swore his eyes glowed. The dogs went silent, ears flat. I grabbed my shotgun, unloaded, just for show, and cracked the door. They were gone. No footprints in the dust, no sound but the desert waking up. Coyote yips, javelina grunts. I ran to the gate, shut it hard, and dragged a chair to block my door. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night stretched forever. I sat by the fire, shotgun across my lap, dogs pressed tight against me. Shadow's growls faded to soft whines. Sonny kept looking at the door, ears twitching. The horses stamped in their stalls, restless, their whinnies cutting through the wind. Every creak of the house made me jump, old wood settling or something else. I kept the lights on, curtains drawn, but I couldn't shake those black eyes. Around midnight, a tapping started, light, rhythmic, on the window. I froze. Shadow barked once, sharp, then stopped. I crept over, peeked through a slit. Nothing but darkness and swaying cactus. The tapping stopped, but the air felt heavy, like before a storm. I heard it then, a whisper, too faint to catch, drifting from outside. The dogs' heads snapped toward the sound. I loaded the shotgun with shaking hands. 2 shells, just in case. The whisper grew, a child's voice saying, "Let us in. Let us in." Over and over, blending with the coyote howls. I yelled, "Go away!" and fired a warning shot into the air. The whisper cut off. Silence fell, thick and wrong. The horses went quiet, too. I didn't sleep, just sat there, watching the door, until dawn bled orange over the desert. Those kids, or whatever they were out there, and I knew they weren't done. That next morning came, but peace didn't. I checked the ranch. Gate still shut. No tracks but the dogs and mine. The horses were skittish, eyes wide, snorting at nothing. Shadow and Sonny wouldn't leave my side, tails tucked. I fed them, hands still unsteady, and tried to shake it off as a bad dream. But those eyes haunted me, black voids that didn't belong to kids. I called Linda, my friend from town, around noon. She's a practical type, runs the feed store, never buys into ghost stories. I told her everything, the knock, the eyes, the whispers. She listened, quiet, then said, "Nancy, that sounds like those black-eyed children." I laughed, nervous. "What, like some urban legend?" Linda hesitated. "Yeah, but I've heard it before. Kids with black eyes asking to come in. People say if you let them, they drain your life, or worse. I thought it was bunk, but your story, it fits." Her voice cracked. "You didn't let them in, right?" I said no, and she sighed relief. But then she added, "Be careful. They might come back." I hung up, staring at the desert. Linda, a skeptic, doubting her own disbelief. That scared me more than the night. Those kids weren't human, and now I wondered what I'd turned away. Tea stretched forever. I sat by the fire, shotgun across my lap, dogs pressed tight against me. Shadow's growls faded to soft whines. Sonny kept looking at the door, ears twitching. The horses stamped in their stalls, restless, their whinnies cutting through the wind. Every creak of the house made me jump. Old wood settling, or something else. I kept the lights on, curtains drawn, but I couldn't shake those black eyes. Around midnight, a tapping started, light, rhythmic, on the window. I froze. Shadow barked once, sharp, then stopped. I crept over, peeked through a slit. Nothing but darkness and swaying cactus. The tapping stopped, but the air felt heavy, like before a storm. I heard it then, a whisper, too faint to catch, drifting from outside. The dogs' heads snapped toward the sound. I loaded the shotgun with shaking hands, 2 shells just in case. The whisper grew, a child's voice saying, "Let us in, let us in," over and over, blending with the coyote howls. I yelled, "Go away!" and fired a warning shot into the air. The whisper cut off. Silence fell, thick and wrong. The horses went quiet too. I didn't sleep, just sat there, watching the door until dawn bled orange over the desert. Those kids, or whatever they were out there, and I knew they weren't done. Days passed, but the ranch didn't feel safe anymore. The dogs stayed close, sniffing the air like they sensed something. I started locking the barn at night, keeping the shotgun loaded by my bed. The horses settled some, but they'd still spook at dusk, ears flicking toward the gate. I avoided going out after dark, sticking to chores in daylight. That tombstone mocked me now. Not funny, just a reminder of what I'd kept out. Or maybe what was still lurking. Linda came by a week later, bringing feed and news. She'd looked up the black-eyed children, stories from the 80s and 90s, people claiming encounters, some vanishing after letting them in. "There's a pattern," she said, pale. "They ask to enter, get pushy, then disappear. No one knows what they are. Demons, aliens, something else." I told her about the whispers, the glowing eyes. She shivered. "You're lucky, Nancy. Most who see that don't get a second chance." We sat by the fire, dogs at our feet, listening to the desert hum. I half expected a knock, but none came. Still, I felt watched. every shadow, every rustle. Linda left with a promise to check on me. But I knew I was alone with this. Those black eyes were burned into my mind, and I wondered if they'd ever leave. Weeks turned to months, and Cave Creek started changing. By 1999, developers crept in. Houses, roads, turning my nowhere into somewhere. The coyotes thinned out, javelinas less bold, but the memory of that night didn't fade. Shadow and Sunny aged fast after, passing within a year. I buried them near the tombstone, their graves a quiet tribute. The horses went too, sold off as the ranch shrank. I stayed, though, stubborn, I guess. Sometimes late at night I'd hear it again, that whisper, faint as a desert breeze. I'd grab the shotgun, check the gate, but nothing was there. Linda stopped talking about it, acting like it never happened, but I caught her glancing at the desert, uneasy. I started locking the doors even in daylight, a habit born from that October night. The black-eyed children became my secret, a story I only told once. Until now, to you at grimtaleteller@gmail.com. I don't know what they were. Kids abandoned by some cult, something older, hunting in the dark. All I know is they wanted in, and I said no. Maybe that saved me. Or maybe they're still out there waiting for someone weaker. Today, Cave Creek's got streetlights and neighbors, but I still feel those eyes sometimes, watching from the edges. I'll never open that door again. And that's Nancy's tale from the deserts of Cave Creek, 1998. A brush with the black-eyed children that left her, and her friend Linda, questioning reality. True encounter or chilling legend? The desert holds its secrets, and those eyes might still linger. Thanks to Nancy for sharing at grimtaleteller@gmail.com. If this gave you goosebumps, subscribe for more weekly chills. Drop a like if you'd have opened the door or not, and tell us your strangest visitor story below. Next time we'll dive deeper into the shadows. Until then, keep your gates shut and your lights on. This has been Grim Tale Teller. Good night, if you can sleep.